Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. And today I wanted to answer a question actually. A friend of mine asked me a very good question, and because it was such a good question, it's taken me a few days to have a little think about it. Me being me, I had to think about it. When she initially put the question to me, I was a little bit stumped and a bit humbled because the work that I do, I thought in that moment, I was like, oh, yes, this is a great question and I'm going to love answering it. And then I was a little bit stumped, and I now know why, since I've had a little bit of a think about it, or a big bit of a think about it. I know what it is that stumped me. So I've spoken for almost a minute, just checking the time down there, and I haven't told you what the question is. Are you curious? The question was and is 5 things. This was the question that was posed to me. Mira, can you tell me 5 things, your top 5 favorite things to do to fall in love with yourself? And because self-love is such a big part of what I teach and practice, because I believe, particularly for the women that I work with and that I am friends with and that I see and interact with, there are so many challenges to that, from the wounds that we've experienced, from the traumas perhaps that we've experienced in our life, and that if we learn to do this, it changes our orientation to everything. But what I realized is that for me, the falling in love, the process of falling in love with myself has already happened. I feel that I am in love with myself. And for me, it's about that continuing cultivation of staying in love with myself. So I had to have a little bit of a think. It was a great question. So I thought, okay, well, if I'm not at all, if I maybe even hate myself, or I don't, this is what I think is probably more the issue. I don't know myself. And I thought about, well, what is the process of falling in love with another person? And in the beginning, we don't know that person. So we can't be in love with them because we don't actually know who they are. So the process of falling in love with somebody is also the process, the slow, mystical, lovely unfolding of the process of getting to know them. So I thought about that process and how it might translate to the process of getting to know ourselves and falling in love with ourselves, and then how we might do that intentionally. So my number 1 top tip: if we don't know who we are, then we're making assumptions. And what is the number 1 way to get to know somebody? It's to actually ask questions. So the first step, and my number 1 favorite thing for falling in love with myself, is asking myself questions. Mira, what do you think about that? What do you like about that thing? What are your thoughts on XYZ? What things do you like to do? This is how we get to know another person, and equally, it's how we can get to know ourselves. And this might sound a little strange to have a very conscious and deliberate conversation with yourself, but most of us are having unconscious, unintentional ones that aren't very pleasant or very nice. Just realized my phone is on and it could ring, so I'm going to put it on silent. So first thing is, ask questions. Get curious to know who you are. The second part, and again, I think about this when we're in the process of someone we like, so we've got to know them a little bit and we like them. If we're going out on dates or hanging out with them, we then begin the process of observing them. So there's the questions and getting to know them consciously, and what they think about things and what things they like and don't like and why. And then we get to observe them in action. Maybe we're out at a cafe, and it's funny actually, because I think there's a lot of dating sites that talk about this. Watch how the person that you're on a date with engages with others in certain contexts. How do they treat other people? So one big part of that questioning phase is getting to know someone's values. What are the things that are important to this person, and are they aligned to our own? So the process with ourselves is, what are they, and do I like the values that I am purporting to have initially? And then are my values demonstrated in my behaviors? Is there integrity, and is there resonance? Is there consistency between who I say I am, what I say I like, and then how I show that? And so as we are going about our days, we can begin to observe ourselves, because the thing is, the more congruence there is between who we say we are and who we show ourselves to be, how we act, the more we can naturally and easily love ourselves, fall in love with ourselves, like ourselves, because we like people who have integrity. We like people who are congruent. It feels good. So first step, ask yourself questions, get to know yourself a bit through that conscious process. Second step, get to know yourself by observing yourself, seeing the things that you like. The additional aspect of this is, if we like someone, we want to observe these things for later. We can then, that's how we get to know them, is watching. Oh, they had, I can see we've gone to the park for walks and they really, really like dogs. And maybe when it's their birthday, you get them a card about dogs. Simple stuff like that. It's those little details that we notice about a person that make them feel loved. So it's the same for ourselves. It's those little details that we notice about ourselves in this observational phase that can help us to really define the distinguishing characteristics that make us us, because it's that uniqueness that makes us fall in love with a person. So our own uniqueness for ourselves is what can help us to fall in love with ourselves. Beautiful. Number 3, again, doing these parallel processes between a date with another person and, in this process, dating ourselves. When we come back from these interactions, when we come back from these asking the questions and making the observations, the next stage is we might sit down and reflect and have a little think about, what did I see in that person today and what did I like? So we might be in the observation phase, we're doing it in the moment. In the reflection phase, we're sitting back, and in times in the past when I've dated, it's been like a journaling process in the evening, like what did I like about what that person did and who they showed themselves to be and why? So I'll do that reflecting, and we can do the same. Once we've begun to gather the data to see ourselves acting out in different ways, or not acting out, but acting out our values in various ways, or not, as the case may be, then we can begin to identify and reflect on and notice the things that we like about those things. Equally, make adjustments potentially. If we see there's some there's a little bit of conflict here between who I said I was and what I said I liked and what's actually happening, we begin to make those adjustments. And in those adjustments, with that congruence coming into place, we're going to like ourselves more, love ourselves more, easily fall in love with ourselves. Once we've done that reflecting, the next step, and again, taking the parallel, if we're falling in love with a person outside of ourselves, we would then be offering that appreciation back to them, to celebrate and savor. I like this about you. I notice this about you, and it makes me feel really great, and I want to tell you. And that amplifies that feeling. So equally, we can do that for ourselves. Once we've observed and reflected, we can acknowledge and appreciate, hey, Mira, the way you talked to that person today, that person was upset and you managed to hold space and be really compassionate. That was awesome. I really like that about you. So we can give that appreciation and acknowledgement back to ourselves. And again, this process of doing that actively amplifies the emotions, the positive emotions that we might feel for ourselves, and make it easier for us to fall in love with ourselves. Okay. Number 5, 5th step. The 5th step in falling in love with yourself is to then, having observed the little details of what makes you you and what you like and what you don't like and what your values are, is to then offer gifts in various ways. So some of you might be familiar with the concept of love languages. I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but if you look it up, you'll see it. That all of us have different love languages. And so part of this process is getting to understand what our own love language is and give it to ourselves. So I won't go into the big details of that concept and that theory. You can look it up. I think there are 5 primary love languages: physical gifts, words of affection and praise or affirmation, actual physical affection, acts of service, and then maybe one more. So looking at, once we've got to know ourselves, if we know, oh, words of praise and affirmation really make me feel loved, then we are going to fall in love with the person that's giving that to us, right? So if we're giving it to ourselves, we are both seeing ourselves in that way, which makes it easier to, seeing ourselves from the point of view of observing, getting to know, observing, appreciating, and then acting loving towards. And then we're also receiving those acts of love from ourselves, and it's going to be easier for us to fall in love with the being that's offering those things to us if they're coming to us positively and beautifully. So the 5th step is to give yourself the gifts of love that will help you to flourish. And in this flourishing, it's so much easier, again, to fall in love with a person who is in a state of flourishing. So we can be that person that helps us to flourish and helps us to be a person that we can fall in love with. So that is my answer, my top 5 tips for falling in love with yourself. I hope it's useful, and I really appreciate those of you that take the time to watch these videos. And if you feel so moved to write a comment, ask a question, even just a thing to say, hey, it's nice to see you. I love all the interactions. It really is much, much appreciated. And if you try it and it's helpful and you tell me, that's even more appreciated. Okay, I hope you're having a great, wonderful, nourishing, loving morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are and what time you're watching this. Take care. Bye.